Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. So continuing with our discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 5, The Cause of All Causes, text number 24 onwards. So Brahmaji is further speaking to Narad Muni. Sohankara iti prokto vikurvan sambhutrita vaikari kastajascha tamasascheti yadhita dravishakti kriya shaktir jnana shaktir iti prabho. The self-centered materialistic ego, thus being transformed into three features, becomes known as the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance in three divisions, namely the powers that evolve matter, knowledge of material creations, and the intelligence that guides such materialistic activities. Narad, you're quite competent to understand this. But in the shloka, Brahmaji is calling him Prabhu, or Master. His own son, Brahmaji is calling your Prabhu, your Master. And you're quite intelligent to understand all this. You're quite competent. See, even Brahmaji has so much of humility. So how much humility we should have? So he's talking about the materialistic ego because Brahmaji, at least our Brahmaji in this universe, he doesn't have that kind of ego. That's why he's calling Narad Muni as Prabhu. Materialistic ego, or the sense of identification with matter, is grossly self-centered, devoid of clear knowledge of the existence of God. And this self-centered egoism of the materialistic living entities is a cause of their being conditioned by the other paraphernalia and continuing the bondage of material existence. So it means materialistic ego, basically the subtle body, which Prabhupada used to call it as false ego, mind intelligence and false ego. So ego has to be there. Ego means our identity, not the pride. Of course, the pride comes later on, but ego is our identity. False ego is falsely identifying with the body. And real ego, we have a real ego also, which is I am servant of Krishna. So this self-centered egoism, which is I am this body and everything that belongs to this body is mine, and this is my whole area of service. Anything and anybody related to this body, me. And this is a cause of their being conditioned by the other paraphernalia and the continuing the bondage of material existence. In the Bhagavad Gita, this self-centered egoism is very nicely explained in the chapter. The self-centered impersonalist, without a clear conception of the personality of Godhead, concludes in his own way that the personality of Godhead takes a material shape from his original impersonal spiritual existence for a particular mission. And this misleading conception of the Supreme Lord by the self-centered impersonalist continues, even though he is seen to be very interested in the Vedic literature such as Brahma Sutras and other highly intellectual source of knowledge. So what Prabhupada is saying, anybody who is self-centered, anybody who is more concerned about his body or the bodily relationships is an impersonalist. Impersonalist. Why? Because if he's a personalist, if he's worshipping a personal form of the Lord, then he will either slowly or he is already out of this bodily conception of mind. Because then he understands he is a spirit soul who is servant of God. So then Prabhupada writes, and this misleading conception of the Supreme Lord, which he thinks is impersonal, it continues even though he is seen to be very interested, even though the impersonal or self-centered person, he could be interested in Vedic literatures, but his whole idea is that ultimately God is Nirakar. There is no form. Or basically, it also boils down to I am God. That's also one of the reasons. This ignorance of the personal feature of the Lord is due simply to ignorance of the mixture of different modes. The impersonalist thus cannot conceive of the Lord's eternal spiritual form of eternal knowledge, bliss, and existence. The reason is that the Lord reserves the right of not exposing himself to the non-devotee, who even after a thorough study of literature like Bhagavad Gita remains an impersonalist simply by obstinacy. So Krishna also does not reveal himself to such a person. This obstinacy is due to the action of Yogamaya, a personal energy of the Lord that acts like an aide de camp by covering the vision of the obstinate impersonalist. Such a bewildered human being is described as Muda or grossly ignorant because he is unable to understand the transcendental form of the Lord as being unborn and unchanging. So that this is what Krishna also says, Avajananti mam Muda manushim tanumashit. And also he says, I cover them with my Yogmaya potency. Because those who are impersonalists, they cannot understand. They cannot that there is a personal form of Lord, and they're very envious. Envious in the sense means they want to become God. A devotee of a personal feature never wants to become God. Why should I become God? He is happy serving God. And he knows he cannot become God. If the Lord takes a form or material shape from his original impersonal feature, then it means that he is born and changeable from impersonal to personal. But he is not changeable. Nor does he ever take a new birth like a conditioned soul. The conditioned soul may take a form, birth after birth, due to his conditional existence in matter. But the self-centered impersonalists, by their gross ignorance, accept the Lord as one of them because of self-centered egoism, even after so-called advancement of knowledge in the Vedanta. So the impersonalists or Nirankaris, or who were different names are there, Nirvisheshwadis, they all what they say is ultimate is Brahm Jyoti. Ultimate is Brahman. And from that Brahman, Krishna comes, Ram comes, Narsinghdev comes. And we have also come from that. Ultimately, we all are God because we all are going to become God. This is nonsense philosophy. The Lord being situated in the heart of every, but Krishna also, this is one of the opulences of Krishna is renunciation. He's full in renunciation. Nobody can be more renounced than he is. Even though he has all money, power, fame, knowledge, beauty, but he is completely renounced. And this is one of the features of his renunciation that Krishna, the Prabhupada writing, the Lord being situated in the heart of every individual living entity, knows very well the tendency of such conditioned souls in terms of past, present, and future. So he, even though a person is impersonalist, even though he has this concept that Krishna does not exist, it's Brahman or it's Nirakar. Or even if a person does not believe in God, he's an atheist, or any other philosophy, Krishna still maintains every living entity. This is his opulence of renunciation. He's not at all attached. Of course, when it comes to his devotees, he personally takes care of them. That's a different story. But everybody else, he's not at all attached. He takes care. Just imagine if somebody comes to us and he says, "Oh, you don't exist. You don't have hand. You don't have mouth. You are crazy. This, whatever you want." And still, if we want to take care of it, that's very high. But this is what people talk so much nonsense about Krishna. And Krishna still takes care of it. That's his renunciation or love for all the living entities. By the will of the Lord, therefore, the impersonalist, even after knowing the Brahman and Paramatma features of the Lord, remains ignorant of his eternal person feature as ever existence Narayan, transcendental to all material creation. The cause of such gross ignorance is constant engagement by the materialistic man in the matter of artificially increasing material demands. To realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to purify the materialistic senses by devotion service. So this is complete ignorance when person does not even understand Krishna. The mode of goodness or the Brahminical culture recommended in the Vedic literatures is helpful to such spiritual realization. And thus the Gyan Shakti stage of the conditioned soul is comparatively better than the other two stages, namely Dravya Shakti and Kriya Shakti. So Dravya Shakti is when we just want to enjoy or we just believe in the existence of the world. And Kriya Shakti is like Prabhupada saying, the whole material civilization is manifested by huge accumulation of materials, or in other words, raw materials for industrial purposes and the industrial enterprises, Kriya Shakti, are all due to gross ignorance of spiritual life. So Kriya Shakti means to work hard and hard and hard to make more and more material enjoyment. In order to rectify this great anomaly of materialistic civilization based on the principles of Dravya Shakti and Kriya Shakti, one has to adopt the process of devotion service of the Lord. And that comes from Jnana Shakti stage. I mean, one has to know about God and then serve Him. Like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yat Karoshi Yadashnasi. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you can perform, should be done as an offering unto me. So one has to come to the level of personal feature to make further progress. Text 25. I know this is lots of philosophy, but Brahmaji is speaking and we should try to understand. तामसादपि भूतादेर्विकुर्वाणाद्भुन्नभः तस्य मात्रा गुणः शब्दो लिंगम यद दृष्टिदृश्ययो. From the darkness of false ego, the first of the five elements, namely the sky, is generated. Its subtle form is a quality of sound, exactly as a seer is in relationship with the seen. So in the beginning, Brahmaji is explaining about the material creations. In the previous verse, he spoke about so ahankariti prokta, so from ego. Okay, even in the previous verse, 23rd, he said there was this Mahatattva, and that Mahatattva got agitated by the desire of the Supreme to have the material creation. And then there were transformation of the modes of passion, goodness, and ignorance. Okay, from this, he says, the self-centered materialistic ego, thus being transformed into three modes, becomes known as the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. And then it powers that evolve matter, knowledge, and intelligence. And now further he is saying, from the darkness of false ego, the first of five elements, namely the sky, is generated. So from ego, then comes sky. Means first all the subtle elements. Like if you remember, Krishna speaks from Bhagavad Gita, the whole creation is made of 8 different energies: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Ether means sky, and mind, intelligence, false ego. So it is getting created in the reverse order. So from false ego, first three modes of nature, and then again from the darkness of false ego, then comes sky or ether. And ether is subtle form is a quality of sound because sound travels in sky, sound travels in ether. So ether is formed, and then at the same time, sound is produced. The five elements, namely sky, air, fire, water, earth, are all but different qualities of the darkness of the false ego. This means that the false ego in the sum total form of Mahatattva is generated from the marginal potency of the Lord. And due to this false ego of lording it over the material creation, ingredients are generated for the false enjoyment of the living being. So it's not. So this is a real creation, not just like there was a big chunk and the Big Bang happened and everything just appeared. There's no such thing. This is how the creation happens, and when the destruction also happens, it happens in the opposite way. Means earth becomes merged in water, water merges in fire, fire in air, air in sky, sky in mind, mind in intelligence, intelligence merges in false ego, and everything is destroyed, finished. And creation happens the other way around. The living being is practically the dominating factor over the material elements as an enjoyer, though the background is a supreme Lord. And why we are the living entity wants to be the enjoyer, the controller of this material elements or the material nature, because we are part and parcel of Krishna. And Krishna is the original enjoyer, controller, proprietor of everything. So we also have that tendency of being the controller, proprietor, enjoyer. Krishna is the controller, proprietor, enjoyer of everything, spiritual material worlds. We cannot be at least of the spiritual world. So we try to be controller, proprietor, enjoyer of material elements. But here also, it's a false enjoyment. The Prabhupada is writing. Due to the false ego of lording it over material creation, ingredients are generated for the false enjoyment of the living being. We think we are the controllers. We think we are the enjoyers. But we are not. We can't even control our own body. What to speak of controlling the whole world or the whole community or whatever. We can't control our own body. It's very simple. I mean, how many of us can control the eyelids from blinking? Nobody can. So what kind of controller we are? And if somebody says, "Oh, I can control myself very nicely," so if he is only hungry for 3 chapatis, feed him 6 chapatis, and let's see how big a controller he is. We'll find out. He won't be able to even control his own stomach. So this is our false ego that makes us think that I can be the controller. The living being is practically the dominating factor over the material elements as an enjoyer. Though the background is a supreme Lord, factually save and accept the Lord, no one can be called the enjoyer. But the living entity falsely desires to become the enjoyer. This is the origin of false ego. When the bewildered living being desires this, the shadow elements are generated by the will of the Lord, and the living entities are allowed to run after them as after a phantasmagoria. So shadow elements are generated by the will of the Lord. Means actually the real reality is in the spiritual world. Material world here, everything is perverted reflection. That's all it is. Of course, I mean, whatever we're seeing, like you're sitting in a car, the car is there. but it's a perverted reflection of the real enjoyment or real elements, real items in the spiritual world. Why? So let's understand this. The earth means a solid matter that we can see. What is this solid matter? Like in our schools, in the chemistry classes, we have studied earth, earth, water, and gas. Three elements are there. Of course, they don't teach about fire, which is plasma element, but that is for higher studies. So even elementary school, earth, water, and gas. Or earth, liquid, and solid, liquid, gas. So the difference between solid and liquid is what? Is just the bond between molecules. The bond is stronger in solid, and bond is little weaker in liquid. And bond is even more weaker in gas. So that's all it is. Solid, liquid, gas. It's about the bond. Bond is energy. If the energy is removed from solid, it can become liquid or it can become gas. So whatever we are seeing right now is basically the energy that is holding the molecules together. That's all. And we think it is solid, and maybe it's a very solid as diamond, or little solid as gold or silver, and I can wear that and I look beautiful, I can enjoy that. What is it? Just energy. There's nothing else. Even our whole body is nothing but some energy. And that's what Prabhupada is writing. It's just a shadow element. And the living entities are allowed to run after them as after a phantasmagoria. Phantasmagoria means a will o' the wisp, or the flower in the sky. It doesn't exist actually, whatever we are trying to enjoy. It is said that first the tanmatra, sound is created, and then the sky. And then this verse, it is confirmed that actually it is so. But sound is a subtle form of sky. And the distinction is like that between the seer and the seen. The sound is a representation of the actual object, as a sound produced speaking of the object gives an idea of the description of the object. Therefore, sound is subtle characteristic of the object. Similarly, sound representation of the Lord in terms of his characteristics is a complete form of the Lord, as was seen by Vasudeva and Maharaj Dashrath, the fathers of Lord Krishna and Lord Rama. So sound, Prabhupada is trying to explain, sound is a subtle characteristic of the object. He's giving an example of seer and the seen. Or how to explain this? The sound is a representation of the actual object. As a sound produced, speaking of the object gives an idea of the description of the object. So so previously to that Prabhupada writing, sound is a subtle form of the sky. So subtle form of the object, subtle character or subtle representation of the object comes in the form of sound. And Prabhupada then gives the example of just like Lord Krishna or Lord Ram, sound representation of the Lord is complete form of the Lord. But in the material world, it just represents about the object, about something. They're like we are talking, we say sky. We can say the sky, but we cannot see the sky, or we cannot see the ether. But we know it is there. So now Prabhupada is saying the sound representation of the Lord is not different from the Lord, because the Lord and his representation in sound are absolute knowledge, but not in the material world. Material world is different. It's just a representation. It's not. It's not like they both are same. But spiritual world is different. That is why it is said the whole material world is created like here Brahmaji is explaining the first creation is of sound, the material creation, the gross creation, sound and the sky. So if the creation happens because of sound, so one can get out of this material world only by sound, which is chanting of the holy names. That's what Prabhupada is writing. Thus one can immediately enjoy the association of the Lord by the pure vibration of the sound representation of his holy name, and concept of the Lord is immediately manifested before the pure devotee. Holy name of the Lord as recommended in the Shastras, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, may therefore be constantly chanted by the Lord, aspiring to be constantly in touch with the Supreme Lord. One who is thus able to associate with the Lord is sure to be delivered from the darkness of created world, which is a product of false ego. So, because of false ego, sound is produced, or three modes of nature and then the sound. And by using the same sound, we can create, or we can at least get out of these three modes of material nature and be established in the real ego instead of the false ego that we are in right now. So the same thing, so whole material elements, the material creation can be used in the service of the Lord. So beginning with the sound, we can use that, everything in relation, in service of Krishna. And this will purify us. Same sound, same false ego can bind us, and same sound, or not, so sound principle can liberate us. It depends on us. What do we want? I know it is little difficult. It's a whole lot of philosophy, but we have to understand it. Hare Krishna. So we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, very, very intellectual
Hare
class
Krishna.
and beautiful explanations by Prabhupada as well as yourself. Thank you so much.
I'm just struggling to even understand what Prabhupada has written. And it's funny, now when people say bhakti is so easy, just chant. Well, actually, it is easy, just chant. But if you have to study this Bhagavatam and understand the philosophy, it's very difficult.
I think this understanding develops with pure chanting only.
Yeah, it makes our mind, our consciousness, our intelligence conducive to get this philosophy right, and then we get the mercy of Krishna also. So he gives us the intelligence to understand
Yes,
what is right. Just imagine how Prabhupada wrote all these purports. He was just dictating on the machine, and devotees were typing, and he was just sitting in the middle of the night and dictating everything. And this second canto, he translated when it was very much in the beginning of movement. First canto, he translated in India. He wrote in India. And second canto,
yes, it's all unbelievable.
Yeah. How he wrote everything. We can't even write one paragraph of what he did. It's completely unbelievable.
Each and every purport Prabhupada written in Bhagavatam is like a masterpiece. And he has smashed all other false philosophies so beautifully that we can be crystal clear that this is the ultimate path we have to take.
Yeah.
All other philosophies Prabhupada is very, very beautifully and logically, defeated. So that there is no doubt in our mind that impersonalism or any other voidism. So Prabhupada has literally destroyed that philosophies which are false.
And another beautiful aspect of Prabhupada's purports is nowhere he has written, I think, I believe. Nowhere.
So much conviction.
And it's all is always quotes from Bhagavad Gita or some other scripture, he's always quoting. Even if he is not writing the verse number, he's always quoting from here or there.
This is what establishes the
It's
same
amazing.
confusion.
Yeah.
Because Prabhupada quoting widely from various scriptures, that we have no doubt what he is talking is some kind of dogma. So Prabhupada is always quoting from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad
Yep.
Gita.
So it's all authorized, it's all authentic. There's no mixture, nothing is there.
After 50 years, people who read Prabhupada's book today, they are taking to the process of bhakti so easily. So it's all
Yep.
proof of truth, absolute truth. Prabhupada is written.
And that's why, like Prabhupada said, I didn't write these books. Krishna dictated to me.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt about those words. When he said, I didn't write, Krishna dictated. That's all.
It's simply wonderful, Prabhu. This is our great good fortune. Every day we are getting to read and hear the Bhagavatam on an early morning. So it makes our day so clear and crystal perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. We are very, very grateful to you for giving.
No, thank you all, because of you guys, I'm also reading Bhagavatam step by step, verse by verse. So it's wonderful. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I have a question.